Well, it's my privilege to introduce the keynote speaker. When we started talking about teamwork, and we really felt we needed to have a day dedicated to teamwork because we wanted people to be inspired and realize the work that they had done at their facilities was appreciated, the teams that they had created, but also try and generate more enthusiasm for team building because teams are so critical to what we do in this work. Some of those slides that Amanda showed, I mean, we know there have been folks out there sitting in what they call a team where it's just one or two people who really are enthusiastic about a project, but they don't have the other support that they need to get things done. And they're spinning their wheels and they're trying their hardest. And we know who some of those people are. And we have a couple teams, small teams like that. What we've grown into as an organization is learned how to start building teams. And we thought, gee, who better to talk to us about teams than someone from military special operations. Maybe even being a Navy guy, someone from Navy Special Warfare, and maybe even Navy SEAL. And it's been my real privilege to get to know Rob DuBois over the last year or so, really through social media, actually, initially. But we've become, I like to think at this point, pretty good friends. I hope so, because I'm kind of afraid of him. Let me give you a little bit of his background. I'll just say a couple more things. Rob is a security and policy advisor, and he's been labeled a smart power authority. I'm going to let him talk more about that and what that actually means. But he was labeled this while assisting U.S., British, and Iraqi forces in Baghdad. He's a multilingual Navy SEAL, speaks multiple languages, including Russian, Turkish, a number of others. Rob has served overseas on a number of tours. He retired from military service in 2006. And after he retired from the SEALs, headed back to Iraq and Afghanistan in support of commanders who were struggling with very complex threat situations of a variety of etiologies. Rob has presented Think Like an Adversary workshops to military units in the hottest combat zones. And I think it's probably not unlike some of the work that we might do at the bedside. In the work that we do in perinatal care. Rob has served on the Deputy Secretary of Defense's Senior Integration Group, led DoD's Red Team operations, and is a chairman of the National Security Subcommittee of the Homeland Security Foundation of America. Rob is also Chief Security Officer for the All Humanity Group. He is now founder and CEO of DuBois Consulting. He also is operating a new organization called Powerful Peace. And I have to say that over the last month, I've got to know Rob a little bit more intimately. Rob actually came down and spent a day with us in the NICU at UNC and rounded with me, which was quite an experience. And to get an idea what operations were like in the NICU, as he says. And we actually spent some time and sat down with military families who were in the NICU. And they do have some really unique issues. I think there's lots of opportunity for us to work with in terms of those folks and trying to help them and accommodate the needs that they have, especially when they're displaced from bases and they find out themselves in level 3 units that are 100, 150 miles away from home base. So ladies and gentlemen, hope you join me in welcoming Rob DuBois.
Is this thing on? Yes. Systems check. Okay, now how to use the laser beam. I wanted to start with a logo for Picnic because I love this. It's a great symbol. It's a really, really cool symbol. I'm going to test my laser beam. Well, it works. Okay. This is a really great symbol. I just wanted to say, kudos to the team that built this thing. And I'm all about symbolism. I'm all about images. I just changed we finalized a logo for my own firm, which is Seal of Peace, and it's got a Spartan sword over a peace symbol. So a lot of you will see that in months and years to come, because symbols, images matter. What I want to talk about today, obviously, is about teamwork. The subtitle today is Lessons on Teaming from a Lifetime at War, which is from the subtitle of my book, Powerful Peace, A Navy SEAL's Lessons on Peace from a Lifetime at War. Marty was the suggester of this. I love it. It's a really cool idea, the lessons on teaming, because I know a couple of things about teaming, needless to say. I'm from the SEAL teams. I spent a decade there and a decade doing things for a little-known agency that used to be called No Such Agency. Literally, they told us that's what it stood for. That was in the 80s, and the Soviets were a really cool enemy, but now we don't have any cool enemies. We have a bunch of mutts running around trying to snip our heels. We'll talk about that in the presentation. So, what am I chasing? I look here, first to make sure I know who I am. I am Rob DuBois. I'm chasing dignity for all. In 34 countries, I've seen a great deal of indignity. I've seen children who were scarred by their parents. My best little buddy in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, was melted from the scalp to the sternum. He would run up to me in the bazaar, hey man, dollar, give me a dollar. And it was for me it was hard to look at him, of course. By the way, speaking of medical care, I'm not prone to medical emergencies, but if I have one, I hope it happens now. So he would come up and say, hey man, give me a dollar, and we'd talk for a while, and I realized as we saw a bunch of other little kids that were in similar situations with visible scars, visible injuries, lame, hobbled. In some places around the world, conditions are so desperate that it's considered acceptable for a begging child to be damaged in some way to build pity, so that the people like me who come into town, they think we're tourists, and we're walking through the bazaar, they'll come up and get pity from us, get pity dollars or pity food. I wasn't even planning on talking about that, but it's something that comes to mind as I'm thinking about this, because what Marty inspired in me is something I can't show you because I didn't put the slide in, because it wasn't appropriate to this presentation, I thought. It's two little girls who were very bloody, sitting on a doctor's examination table in Kirkuk, Iraq. And I was probably in Iraq when this happened, but I wasn't at the scene. These two little girls were blown up by an Al-Qaeda in Iraq car bomb, a VBIED, vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. And they're lacerated from the scalp to their bellies, and some of their girlfriends died. It was a little girls' school in Kirkuk, Iraq. And so these girls are, one I talk about. You can see it if you look in, page, I've got the page marked so I can read from it. Page 10 of Powerful Peace has this image that's so powerful. These two little girls are sitting there, and one's like, crying, and you can just see she's reaching out. She can't get the care that she needs, but she desperately wants it. She'll never be calm or comfortable. She'll never be at ease for the rest of her life, because when she was 4, terrorists blew her up. She had a little white blouse on, and there's just saturated. Crimson, 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 white, white, where it was originally the color of the blouse her mommy put on that day. So on the question of who do you play for, I happened upon a photo of two little girls who had been blown up by Al-Qaeda in Iraq at their school in Kirkuk on April 2nd, 2007. It's my favorite picture. I keep it as a screensaver to remind me who I serve and to put my own troubles in context. Some days I can't get my hair to come out just right, and these kids have real problems. I work for them and others like them. They don't pay me for my work. But those who do pay me understand that ultimately I work for those little girls. And that's why I'm here today. That's why our mutual friend put me and Marty in contact, and why I was so enthusiastic about coming down to participate today. And like I said, I'd like to be in a medical room, a medical association, because I can drop dead and be revived in case the stress of speaking gets too great. But that's why I exist. I don't care who gives me checks. I appreciate checks, but I don't work for the checks. I wouldn't have worked for 20 years in the Navy and 7 or 8 years now doing service if it was about the check. I would have been a lawyer a long time ago because they can make a lot of money if they want to as shysters. There's probably no lawyers in here right now. And a lot of lawyers care very much about their clients. That's my caveat. Can I put the slides up, please? It all counts. Lessons on teaming from a lifetime at war, from Powerful Peace. Lessons on peace from a lifetime at war. Okay, ready for this? I did it. Can we bring the house lights down at all? Even just flick them off and see how the slides look without the actual globes in front of the slides? Dimming would be great, but if you need to power them off entirely, that's terrific. That's much better. This is a backstory. This is the other reason that I wanted to come to Picnic. As we talked about, Marty and I got to know each other over time, and he learned that I have a very picnic background, not from as a provider of services, but as a victim or as a patient, if you will, of the picnic care sort of lifestyle. This lady here is Cynthia Taylor DuBois. Except for her judgment and quality of choosing men, she's a great person. I tricked her about 20 years ago into marrying me. She said it was because I had the gift of gab, and I talked her into it. But Cindy and I got married in 1993, and we moved to Hawaii, where I was being stationed. Not a bad gig. That's on the beach where we lived for 10 years. But as soon as she got there, she got knocked up. We were really glad to be together. And then, a couple of months into it, she had a lot of abdominal pain as we're getting ready for this great joy. And she had cramps and bleeding, and said, I got to go to the doctor. I'm really scared. And we went to the doctor, and it turned out she'd miscarried. So, among her many amazing traits, Cindy's a special education teacher and professional administrator. Has an incredible heart for human beings, especially children and those who are weaker in need. But because she is so sensitive, it was devastating. You know, I know you guys work in this industry, and you've seen such horrible stories. Marty and I talked about the one with little Grant. However, there's no easy loss. There's no small loss. A miscarriage for somebody who can't wait to see their baby is not a negligible thing. So she was traumatized and had terrible pain in her heart from this over the months that followed, and finally got over it and then got knocked up again. And we were frightened, and we thought, well, you know, what are the odds? It's not going to happen again, right? So as I was landing in Japan, I got the call, come back, your wife's in distress. I went back, and when she had a lot of cramping and serious pain, we went to the doctor at a medical system provider. I'm going to speak to that specifically, and caveat again, the medical institution, the military medical system is not broken. It's not bad. It's not low quality. It's the same quality as every human being in the system. Every chain is only as strong as its weakest link. I don't care if you're a military system or a civilian system like this one here. It's every person that makes a difference. Every human being in the system. Every person is the one that counts, not the system itself. I talk about it in Powerful Peace. There is no actual group identity on the planet. I call myself an American. I could qualify as middle class, white, male, straight. There's a lot of labels that can be stuck on me, but really I'm just me. And America is just 300 million people who identify as Americans and who accept certain, standards of the policies, the laws. Picnic. Picnic is just a list of names. Picnic is just a piece of paper with a lot of ideas and organizational recommendations and a shared culture, an idea that I want to be part of this thing, and therefore I voluntarily am part of it. But every human being is what matters. And I want to talk about one human being in the military medical care system who had the bedside manner of a rock. And we went to see him to talk about this pain and bleeding, and he said, "You miscarried. Go home, sleep it off." And at the time, I believed him. I didn't know, because I don't know from nothing about this. That's why my slides are more about SEAL stuff and hoo-yah stuff as compared to the hoorah, which is what the Marines say. We say hoo-yah. I got some hoo-yah stuff in here, cool photos of guys in difficult situations, wishing they were somewhere else. But I learned through experience what happened here. This doctor said, you miscarried, go home, sleep it off, deal with it. We went home, and then sometime later, she was in excruciating agony, called me at work. It was an ectopic. It was an ectopic that was progressing because of this misdiagnosis. So we went back to the hospital in the ambulance. Doc goes in, slices it open, removes the pregnancy, saves her life, saves her from a bursting, and nicks an artery. So now Cindy's laying on the table, lost 2 babies at this point, has had abdominal surgery, although at the time it was minimal, and is trying to manage to deal with this terrible emotional pain she's experiencing. And then the hours go by, and she's bleeding out inside over hours through the night. I didn't know what it was about. We just figured, inflammation happens. The nurses came, pressed on it. Okay, everything seems to be okay. And the turgidity is rising. The basketball's building up in her belly as she's bleeding to death invisibly. And later the next morning, I guess 4 or 5 o'clock, she came to and was rolled over and said, I think I had an accident because the sheet was saturated with fluid. Well, that was her blood draining out of the hole, finally, that had not been caught by anybody during the night, during the checks. And I don't know what her BP was. I don't know what her count was. I don't know what her, how much fluid she had lost. But she was bleeding in a very serious situation. Back to the surgery, back to an emergency repair, close up the artery or whichever blood vessel it was, and send her back to recovery. That was our experience. So I know a couple of things about the experience that you guys deal with on a daily basis, both from the women and from the baby's perspectives. Can I have the slide, please? Naturally, we knew, we had one baby. The child I adopted, her young baby when we met. So we had one boy, and we were going to, ride it out. And then 5 years later, we got pregnant, and Jack was born. I'm not going to elaborate on the fear, but the fear that came up with that. Oh my God! Don't tell me you're pregnant again. We've been careful because we don't want to have any disasters. But this was a pretty awesome disaster. He just turned 15 over the break. Who knows what comes after surprise number 1? My family lived without me for almost all the years of my career. My 15th anniversary gift to my wife was having been home for a total of 7 years. On our 4th anniversary, the one I just missed because I was deployed, I came back and said, hey, let's do the math and look at the month you've been home. And the months I've been home was 12 out of 48. So this is one of the many, 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 many returns I did from deployments. My little glorious princess, Effie, with a little flag. She's 13 now. And I've become an idiot. I had no idea they could affect my mental capacity, but apparently it happened. This is what teaming is. I'll let you digest this. Then we'll go over the 5 aspects I wanted to talk about. Is that visible or legible from the back of the room? Excellent. If you can't read it, ask your neighbor. Teaming is complementary elements. It's things that go together that are not the same. It's purposeful, absolutely full of purpose. show you a really cool Huya photograph of purposeful men. Self-sacrifice and self-growth. A gathering of leaders, a collaboration, a picnic. Every person is a leader. Many of you have heard about the groupthink, the disaster of trying to avoid speaking up when somebody thinks something's wrong. The O-rings on the Challenger. It's a classic case study, and somebody not piping up and saying, dude, I think that O-ring's going to freeze. I think it's going to fail. I think something catastrophic could happen. People thought that, and nobody said that. Or somebody said that, and nobody heard it. In a SEAL team, by the way, to get nomenclature correct, a SEAL team is about 200 SEALs and 100 techs, or non-SEAL Navy personnel who do things like fix boats, electronics, repair weapons, give us our ammunition. It's a real team. It's 300 people. In my team, SDV, or SEAL Delivery Vehicle, which I don't have a cool guy picture of, it's a mini submarine, 22-foot submarine, free flooding, so actually diving on air inside of a boat, a submerged boat at midnight. So put yourself in that situation for a minute. If you have claustrophobia, you can leave the room. So the SDV team, SEAL Delivery Vehicle team that I'm from, SDV Team 1, will figure very prominently in the slides to come. Real quick, show of hands, which is almost impossible for me to see with these lights on my eyes, not on you. Who's heard of lone survivor? Got about a 12% response. Okay, good. You'll learn more about it in a minute. Those are my friends from SDV Team 1. And it's a matter of life and death. No-brainer. SEAL team work is a matter of life and death. But it's a matter of life and death to you as well. Marty's talked about this. It cannot be overstressed. It's a matter of life and death. So for God's sake, please take it seriously. Please take your role as a team member, which equals follower and leader, no matter what role you're in. A SEAL team, I mentioned, is 300 people, 200 SEALs and 100 techs in a SEAL team, a numbered SEAL team like SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 2, SEAL Team 3. And an SDV team is all of us SEALs who drive submarines. So we do the SEAL stuff, plus we can drive mini-subs. So with 100 of us plus 200 techs. But what I'm going to talk about today is the teaming. The reason you have 200 techs at a SEAL delivery vehicle team is because obviously you have a lot more to work on. There's batteries and all kinds of containers inside of the SDV to keep it from sinking away like happens in 600 feet of water, and people can die, or being broaching in the middle of the night when you're trying to sneak up on the enemy. So it requires a lot of technical help. But anyway, it's 300 people. But I thought about it during the preparation of this presentation. I discovered that in my mind there is no plural in SEAL teams. There's one team. There's one team. The SEALs are one team. And I'm already having trouble speaking because I'm thinking what I'm going to talk to you about regarding lone survivor and the team, the solitary team. If you will, cells in the body. We are one organism. And we will die for each other. Picnic, your community is no different. Every person has a role to play, and every single role can save a baby or assist a baby to die, or a mother to become distressed or possibly die. Every single person. You'll hear that again and again from me. This is called the head carry. In BUDS, or Basic Underwater Demolition / SEAL Training, BUDS, these are BUDS students. I'm not one anymore, so we like to look at them and laugh because it's hard. It's really, really hard to be a BUDS student for 7 months of hell. Hardest training in the world, they say. So the head carry, what you're doing in the head carry is you're carrying a boat. The boat weighs 110 pounds. There's 6 guys under a boat as a boat crew. And if one individual isn't carrying the boat, there's 17 more pounds to share. 16% of a 110-pound boat. If 2 individuals don't put their head under the boat, you've actually increased the load by 33% for the surviving 4. One time I was tortured. We get lots of torture. You'll see surf torture, but it's all voluntary. There's no point at which you have to continue. You can ring the bell at any time to walk away from training. But at one point, in my second phase of the 3 phases of BUDS, We really got in trouble bad. So they made us get our little boats and our little masks and our little sea bags and said, join us out here on the beach. And the torment that came to fall was lots and lots of running, lots and lots of carrying sand. But the sand we had to shovel into our sea bags had to be put in the water in the surf. And wet sand is heavy. You might have heard that. So now we're running around with wet sand bags. I almost drowned. I mean, literally. There's a lot of times you almost drown in buds, but this is one of those times. Because I had the thing tied across my chest. I couldn't get out, and the waves were crossing over me as I'd lay down and saturated my sand. So these are complementary elements. These guys are different people. They have different perspectives, different beliefs. But you want to have an appropriate fit to the team. You want to have you can't just take 12 people off the street and call them a picnic team. You can't take 5 people off the street and call them. They have to have the right skills, the right abilities, and be complementary, and don't have any gaps in the team. This guy right here is a gap. This guy is actually, if he puts any pressure on that handle, he's making it heavier for all his buddies, besides not having his head out of the boat. So anyway, this time we were tortured, and we had to get our little boats. We were running around like ants trying to get the boats together, and everybody has a boat team based on height. Makes sense, right? You don't want to have the 6'4" guy with the 5'4" guy, because the 6'4" guy's going to have a really rough time while he's doing the head carry. The 5'4" guy could hang on the strap and be carried along. So I got into the Smurf crew. Normally we had teams. We had 1, 2, 3. Boats were all numbered. That's what you see on the front of this thing. The boat is numbered IX, so that's Team 9 or Boat Crew 9. And the Smurf crew, because it's a height line, you put. We started with 152 guys. 150, I think it was 152 guys. We ended with 15. So SEAL training has an attrition rate of 90% in many cases. But you get a height line to start with to get these boat crews established, and then makes sense. 6 guys of the same approximate height for every boat crew. But because we're running around and we weren't getting to our boat crews, we're just getting yelled at and screamed at and get under a boat. So I got under a boat. The only one that had a 6th place for a guy like me to get in there was the Smurf crew. The Smurfs, the shortest guys in buds, are typically about 5'6". I'm 5'11", and that's 5 inches of me carrying the boat alone. This is surf torture. Surf torture is an experience not to be missed. We have to bind arms together, face the water, lay your head down in it, and let the water go over your head. When that water goes over your head, the water and salt and sand go down your nose, constantly. We become literally aquatic creatures. It's a process of growing gills and becoming part of the maritime environment. So these guys cannot let go of each other. If anybody starts to break, the others lock on tighter. Look at those arms. Try to imagine breaking free from this chain. Because every guy wants to leave. And every guy knows that the team will keep him strong. My water in my first phase, when we were getting a lot of surf torture, was 53 degrees. These guys just heard a funny joke. That's why they're laughing. Or that's a lie. They're in a lot of pain. I love this stuff. I love watching them suffer. Because I know they'll become powerful. It's a tempering. It's like taking iron and putting it on an anvil and hammering it and shoving it back in the furnace and taking it and hammering it some more. It's a tempering. It creates a steel will, a steel character, and a steel body. So this is self-sacrifice, and the third element of teaming is self-sacrifice and self-growth. There's a small picture from where you are, but I was pretty buff back then. My little buddy beside me, his name is Bobby, but he has to be blacked out because all SEALs have to be blacked out unless they're, on a stage somewhere. You don't go through self-sacrifice without self-growth. You don't become less as a person when you give. You actually become greater. A lot of folks that follow me on social media these days have seen me cutting and carving and editing and scraping out, taking off projects, resigning from national boards, clearing my decks because something massive is going to happen with Field of Peace. Something massive is bubbling right now. I leave here to go to Florida tomorrow night to meet with Tony Robbins for 5 days. So there's something about to explode with what you're going to see, like I said about our logo and so forth. So you grow through sacrifice. You cut away and you become greater. It's a paradox, but a lot of truths are. Everybody leads. I mentioned a collection of leaders, a collaboration of leaders. This is called drown proofing. Drown-proofing, you can't really see it from most seats here, I think, but every one of these young men is bound hand and feet and jumps willingly into a 10-foot pool. And then he bobs like the kid in the front, and that's an interesting experience, because if you forget to time yourself right, because what you do, 10 feet again, you want to blow out all the air to go down to the bottom fast, so you hit the bottom and jump back up and get surface level so you can get some more oxygen on those lungs. If you don't do it right, you have a little bit, you go down too slowly, you don't have enough speed to get down if you have any lung air, and so you have to blow out at the bottom when you feel like it's the most paradoxical thing of all. Don't blow out, but you blow out to sink faster, get your feet on the bottom, go up where the oxygen is. And some guys, the horizontal guys, are actually swimming. We are strapped hand and feet and thrown in the pool for half an hour. Don't die. There are guys swimming around. There are real seals with masks and fins, free diving the whole time to watch, and they'll get a guy who's actually drowning. But this is something you can imagine is a pretty enlightening experience. We do other things that are even more stressful in the water, because when a seal is literally off an enemy beach, literally it's midnight, literally there's hail of gunfire waiting to happen if anybody approaches the surface, you have to be comfortable in the water. We run to the water where everybody else runs away from the water when there's a firefighter danger. We run to the safety of the water. But every one of these guys is leading himself, and by example leading the others, because every one of them is only as confident as he is because the others are in there. It doesn't matter how junior you are. Everyone on a team leads. Listen to somebody talking about the O-rings on the Challenger or the Space Shuttle. Listen to whatever your subordinates say. I can't emphasize that enough. In the SEAL teams, we have it easy. A SEAL platoon is either 16 guys for a numbered team or 10 guys like mine in the SDV teams. 4 of us are special reconnaissance and 6 are SDV drivers. Remember that term, special reconnaissance. It's going to come up again as I talk about the lone survivor guys, because that's what Marcus and the boys were doing. They were my teammates, my platoon mates, who were in Afghanistan when everything went to hell. And it's a matter of life and death. One of these guys is dead, killed by a SEAL, and one of them is alive. And he wants to murder thousands, or if he could, millions of people. It is not a pretty picture, it's not a pretty reality, but the fact is we have to make hard steps, do the right thing to make things safer for the world, and that's why it's life and death for us. But as I've already said, and as you're aware acutely on a daily basis for mothers and babies, it is critical to remember the life and death aspect. Now, this is 6 of the guys from SDV Team 1. I use my laser beam. 5 are dead. Marcus is the author of Lone Survivor, a friend of mine. Again, from my team, SDV Team 1, from my platoons. Axe, I didn't know Axe. A neat kid, amazing kid. Marcus named his first child after Axe. Axe Axelson. Dan, the big bearded bear there, was a good buddy of mine. We used to fight. We used to grapple and pound the hell out of each other on the mats. And I usually won, like 60% of the time. And he hated that, but we kept going. I've met his son since. He's in San Diego, and so, kind of helping, I hope to help Jacob have some kind of continuity with his father's passing. Then you got James Sue, the most amazing, sweet kid, Korean-American, never a mean word, never a loud word. But when it was time to run to save Marcus, Mike, and Axe on the ground, he was a lion. Ran to the helicopter, died with the rest. Marcus, as I've mentioned. Then you got Shane Patton, another SDV Team 1 kid. I think I knew him when he was a really new guy at the team. And finally, Mike Murphy. There's a movie about Mike, Murph the Protector. I really enjoyed that. I recommend you check it out. Mike got the Medal of Honor for running during the event to a clear space during the firefight where they were pinned down by a force that severely outnumbered them. Mike ran to an open space and made comms, made communication, made an effective call with his cell phone that brought the helicopter. It was the only way he could make contact, was to break free of the safe place where they were. So these guys are the members of the Lone Survivor story. The movie's going to be out this week. It comes out with Marky Mark Wahlberg as plays Marcus. Marky Mark is 5'8", and Marcus is 6'5", but I'm going to ask you to suspend disbelief. Speaking of teams, the first thing to remember is that Mikey had succeeded in getting through to the QRF, Quick Reaction Force, in Asadabad, a couple of mountain ranges over from where I was still holding out. That last call, the one on his cell phone that essentially cost him his life, was successful. From all accounts, his haunting words, Mike, my guys are dying out here. We need help. Ripped through our base like a flash fire. SEALs are dying. That's a 5-alarm emergency that stops only just on the north side of Frenzy. Lieutenant Commander Christensen, Eric Christensen, a dear friend of mine, our acting commanding officer, sounded the alarm. It's always a decision for the QRF to launch or not to launch. Eric took a billionth of a second to make it. Talks about the potential of losing the guys, Marcus and the 3 other guys on the ground, and he talks about the potential of losing the helicopter, which Eric knew was real. Guys I've already introduced charged into position, desperate to help, cramming as much ammo as they could into their pouches, grabbing rifles and running for the Chinook. Its rotors already screaming. My SDV Team 1 guys were instantly there. Petty Officers James Sue and Shane Patton reached the helo first. Then scrambling aboard came the massively built Senior Chief Healy, Dan Healy, my fight buddy. The man who had masterminded Operation Red Wing, who apparently looked as if he'd been shot as he left the barracks. He was going high speed. Then came the SEAL Team 10 guys. Christensen knew he did not have to go. In fact, perhaps he should not have gone. Stayed instead at his post, central to control and command. Right then, we had the skipper on the QRF, which was at best a bit unorthodox. But Eric Christensen was a SEAL to his fingertips. And what he knew above all else was that he had just heard a desperate cry for help from his brothers, from a man he knew well and trusted. There was no way Eric was not going to answer that call. Nothing on God's earth could have persuaded him not to go. This is why I was talking about there being only one SEAL team. There's one body of people who are called SEALs that will do anything, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. There is no limit, up to and including sacrificing one's life. And 19 men died and Marcus didn't. Marcus was saved by a villager. It's a fantastic story. I recommend you look out the book and the movie. The mission calls new generations. No matter what horror stories we have about the loss of a SEAL, guys, keep going in. Guys, keep doing this. No matter what tragedy you've experienced in Picnic and the people in this team, you keep doing it. It's right. It's what you are called to do. And this is called Surf Passage. That's the dumper. That wave is called the dumper. These guys are going up the face of it, and they're about to be flipped back like a catapult. And paddles and bodies and skulls will be banging into each other, and the boat will be flipped over, and the other guys will be like, I don't want to go, in the other boats. But they have to go. They're getting yelled at and screamed at. They're not going to get tortured. So try to avoid the dumper wave if you can when you're doing Surf Passage next time. Get over the wave while it's forming, not while it's cresting and gonna flip you. So I want to talk about effective picnic teaming. I mentioned I would talk more about SEALs than I would about picnic in your world, because that's where I know. I know, again, from my backstory, my real experiences, the pain, the suffering we've had in my family. And then the wonderful surprises. I mean, that's the story of your life. Marty talked about it, the losses. But I want to connect the two stories, how SEAL teams and the picnic teams intersect, when I first visited the NICU, when I hung out with the staff, when I met the parents, and when I watched the men in labor. Now, if you don't understand this slide, ask your neighbor. That was really clever of me. So the 22nd of December, I was supposed to roll down here and have dinner with Marty. Like last night, I'm coming down from D.C., and I was late, so I couldn't get here in time to have dinner with Marty like we'd planned. Later, he told me it's just as well because they had to let a little angel. Then I hung out with the staff on Monday the 23rd. I think Marty's the green guy. I met some incredible people, people that would make good SEALs in their character and their courage. The determination to drive on, no matter what your pain. Obviously, it affects me to try and comprehend what loss feels like in your world. Is that's why I work for those little bloody girls in terrorism, not in this industry. This is harder to me to imagine than dying beside my brother. But the team is all different sizes. When you make a boat crew, don't have the green guy by the other guy. Make them get the height line working for you. But this team is so impressive, and every person counts. It all counts. Every single individual has a vital role. Remember that. I met the parents. Marty talked about these military families we got to talk to. It was remarkable. Such courage, quiet courage, going through this process of fearing for their twins in many cases on that day, knowing that the outcome was likely good or likely bad. Again, to me, that's almost harder to deal with. Well, it is harder for me to deal with. I'm not strong in this way. You guys are strong in the heart, in the compassion to drive on and survive the pain of watching these things happen. But I was really, 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 really pleased to talk to the parents. Oh, when I watched the men in labor, can you please click in the middle of the screen like I can't do and play?
Did you know that according to women, childbirth is the worst kind of pain there is?
And did you know, according to women, that us men can't handle any of it?
Well, did you know that according to men, women exaggerate everything?
Everything.
That's why we decided to make an appointment with Dr. Julie Masters.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, good.
I'm Dr. Julie Masters.
Hi, I'm Dan.
Nice to meet you.
Are you guys ready for this experience?
Yeah, ready?
What we're going to do today is we're going to put some electrode simulations on your abdomen, which are going to give you some contractions so we can kind of simulate contractions to show what your wife went through during labor.
That sounds fun.
Well, we're going to hook you up right now.
All right.
Go ahead and lay back.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is we're just hooking up the contraction monitor.
This reminds me of those infomercials
Nice and tight.
where they're like,
Nice and tight. Got it?
I'm going to have a six-pack after this.
You're basically going to electrocute us for an hour?
Yes. In a very small way. Just right here in your abdomen. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Here are your wives.
Hey, guys.
I'm just going to give you guys a couple little contractions
All right.
so you can see what it feels like. Where are you feeling that? Are you feeling it in your upper belly?
I'm feeling it right there.
Right now we're going to be starting to simulate a little bit like early labor. Should be, maybe like a 2 or 3 out of 10 in pain.
That was early labor.
I got to remember my breathing.
Well, that's different.
Look at me.
Was that just me
Talk to me
asking
right now.
for attention?
Now?
You're almost getting to like the active stage of labor where it's really getting good.
All right.
Here we go.
Oh!
Smile. Breathe. Awesome. Awesome, guys. It's starting to come down now. You guys are doing awesome.
Got it. Focus.
Start to be increasing in intensity. Come down a little bit. Start to come down.
That had to be at least, I'm hoping it's a 7. That's a 7?
No, you're at 4.
Feels like someone's taking a sawzall and just carving up my abdomen.
Are you doing that?
Stop smiling!
It's starting to really calm down now. Okay, you're doing really great. And now in normal labor, you'd be having a contraction pretty soon again,
Okay,
okay?
but I don't want that yet.
Okay.
Can we get, I'm going to throw up.
Start to come down. Start to come down.
How far are you going to do? You don't want to quit now.
There you go, guys. That's what it feels like. That's it. There you go.
That was not good.
Sucked. That sucked. That was horrible.
Better than you thought it was?
A lot worse.
A lot worse.
I'm telling you right now, I felt like I was having a baby.
Mom, if anything that I just experienced is anywhere close to what I did to you all those years ago, I'm sorry. You're like a superhero. You're one tough mama. Happy Mother's Day.
if you're gonna be a team, be the best, right? So emulate these guys. Try to be like the A team, so that you can keep making this happen. I'm going to conclude. I know we have to bail. I have to tell you, a true story really happened about this guy and this girl and the pain modulation sharing mechanism that was invented. And the husband was told that they had a new technology that could actually share the pain from the mother during delivery. He said, hook me up. I love my wife so much. They put him on. And the doc said, okay, I'm going to put it at 1 out of 10. You ready? The guy's like, I got this, go. Boom, puts it on 1. He's like, hey, I'm okay. It's just like a little tingling. Go to 2. 2. The wife's like, oh, I feel a relief. He says, Doc, I got this. Bring it, take it to like 4. Goes to 4. I'm okay still. I'm okay. Give me some more. All the way to 6. The wife's like, oh my God, what a relief. Because what this was do is it shares the pain between the mother and the father. And finally, he says, give me the 10. I think I got this, Doc. And she's like, oh, it's so relieving. And the guy's like, I survived it. They get home. The postman's dead on the mailbox. We wanted to do Q&A, and I go to my boss and ask, do we have time for a minute or two? A couple of Q&As, Nancy.
Yeah, we do. If you have a question, just feel free to go up to this mic here or here.
First of all, thank you for your service.
A privilege always.
One of the things that I've always been impressed with in my training in medical school and certain situations where it was lacking was the commitment to teamwork. And I wonder if you could address what you do in the military to generate that sense of camaraderie and teamwork.
I think it's all about focusing on the consequences of not having teamwork. It's very, very obvious in my world. And every person is the one who faces death individually. In your world, it's not that way, except for the parents in the audience, and the parents, like Jean-Paul talks about, who will help you, who will teach you, wash your hands, take the little steps. I recommend a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. I'm most of the way through it. I really admire Jeff. The Slight Edge talks about those little, tiny things you do on a consistent basis that lead to success or failure. But it's about I talked about Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins talks about motivating people through either pain or pleasure, that nothing in the world is excused from a relation to pain or pleasure. Either you run away from something because you fear the pain, or you go to it because you desire the pleasure. So build that visceral sense of loss. Build that consequence. Build that visible picture of a baby's casket into your operations. And whatever messages you understand, whatever in your context, in this team, will motivate, take that on, make it part of the regular discussion. And you know, we got to talk about how the ball game went last night. That's how things work. That's life. That's society. Don't let the ball game be more important than the dead babies.